All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Thank you. It's the holiday crowd. You guys must all be from out of town. Excuse me, from out of town.
Good morning.
Good morning, Kim.
Kim, how are you?
Certainly and surely good to see you. And Tony's here.
Thanks, Tony.
Tony's got. You look like you look like you're joining us from a Dave and Buster's there with the.
No, it's just my house.
It's pretty elaborate. He has for
What?
those who are just
What are you
listening.
talking about?
Can you see it? Look at that.
I'm not a man child, not at all.
I love it. Now you know why this guy can build anything, wire anything. He has every arcade game imaginable there in his home.
You can't see, but the light gun setup is right here too. So.
As it should be. We have quite a show for you today. Yeah, we'll get into the look at you. We'll get into news of the day. I think a lot of the news that's getting swallowed up by the Biden pardon is associated with what's going on at the FBI. I'll talk a little bit about that. And we'll get Gary Dietrich in bottom of the hour. The political ninja will give us the lay of the land. And Josh Mankiewicz from Dateline NBC is coming by today. He's got a new podcast. That's what the world needs, is a new podcast, because there are not enough. And Josh has, of course, it's Dateline. So they debut this podcast, and it immediately goes to the second most popular podcast in America. So the podcast, though, deals with, I think, sort of an offshoot of Dateline. They've got a lot of podcasts, but Mankiewicz will explain all to us. So there is a lot going on. I hope everybody had a great weekend with Thanksgiving and everything. I went back east. It's freezing cold there. But it was really good to see everybody, and I'm glad I did. There was, I thought, a couple of notable stories related to Thanksgiving before I got into the Hunter Biden mess, and it is something of a mess. And I get into some of these Donald Trump nominees and what he's doing at the FBI, which is more than a nomination, by the way. It's being played as, by the press, and I say the press, I don't just mean, ABC and the networks. I'm talking about the printed media, like the New York Times, for example. They're playing it as though, and he's going to bring his own FBI director in. Yeah, that's not the way it works. The FBI director is there for 10 years. That appointment is a 10-year appointment. You don't just change FBI directors every time you change presidents. So I will get into that in a bit. But again, I understand Hunter Biden is the sort of front and center issue, and I will talk about that first. But first, I saw any number of things, as you did probably over the weekend, associated with cooking turkeys. We dunk it in oil, we dunk it in whatever, and then you see the flames, and the barbecue. They're either burnt to a crisp or they're whatever. A $3 million mansion is destroyed as a turkey fried in the garage. This is in Connecticut. They fried a turkey on Thanksgiving Day. The fire began in the garage where the turkey was being fried for 25 people who were at the estimated $2.8 million home to celebrate Thanksgiving. Firefighters from multiple departments fought the flames for over 16 hours.
What?
Yeah. The house was deemed uninhabitable at the end of all of this. When firefighters arrived to the scene, the garage fire was rapidly going into the residence.
What can you tell us about the scene?
The scene is that the fire is rapidly going into the residence, Larry.
What can you tell us about the scene?
To make matters worse, firefighters were unable to immediately access water since a car drove over the hose. They tried an aggressive fire attack, but the efforts were thwarted by conditions and structural collapse, say firefighters. and the home, the $3 million mansion, destroyed in this Thanksgiving fire.
I think the folks that cook turkey by dropping it into a vat of oil, you're supposed to do that outside, not in the garage. I saw a picture of someone trying to do it in their kitchen. No, you can't do that. You got to take it outside.
Don't put it in frozen. Don't put too much oil in it. And I bet you they did both of those things.
Yeah. No word on the turkey, though. Maybe it turned out well. I don't know. And for all I know, after all of this, and the amazing thing is, firefighters rescued the turkey and said there's nothing more delicious in the history of Thanksgiving. All right, here's the new recipe for Thanksgiving. First, you burn your house down. Okay. Then, at the very end, when the house is still a little bit intact, you put the turkey in. Pretty ridiculous. But Tony's right. There's so many ways that can go sideways by overfilling the oil or whatever. But it's now cute viral videos. But the reality is that your real damage can be done. And in this case, they lost their home. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
I saw that over the weekend, and I had to share it with you. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Did you get all of the little McAllisters together for Thanksgiving, Kim? How did you...
We had a Thanksgiving at the buffet, the Storytellers Cafe at one of the hotels in Disneyland.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. You went to Disneyland, sure.
Yeah, and then we came home the next day.
What can you tell us about Disneyland?
We had Thanksgiving dinner with Minnie and Mickey, Chip and Dale,
That-
Goofy, Pluto. They all stopped by the table and wished us happy
Wow.
Thanksgiving without words. That was
Man.
good. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So, and the kids like Disneyland.
Yeah.
Oh, there they
I mean,
are.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
they do
not
seem
us.
to be having
That's
fun.
not our family.
No, this is
Somebody
a
else's
simulation family.
But
right?
that is the same restaurant, and those are the same characters.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
And let me guess, Tony, you had to work Thanksgiving. Am I right about that?
Day after I did.
Oh, day after. So
Day
Thanksgiving
of, I
you
actually
were
was
off.
with family. How about
Oh, that's
that?
very nice.
That
yeah,
never
that's cool.
Did you go play in the snow on Thanksgiving?
You're talking to me, or you're talking?
Yeah,
well, I guess
you.
you'd have to be talking
You're
to
the
me
only
because
one that was
Tony.
in the pool,
Yeah.
yeah.
No. It was cold. We went to a farm where we always go for Thanksgiving. I haven't been in many, many years. And it was so terrific to see everybody. It was really, and my dad not being there this year, it was kind of like we didn't talk about that, but it was just sort of, it was great to be back, and see our friends. They're farmers. They're full-on farmers. They live in rural Maryland, and they're just lovely. And and we just shared so much life together through the years that it was really quite special. I did, during my time, because I have to bring it back to politics, I did ascertain or otherwise surmise, both of which would be ding words, ascertain and surmise.
Agree. Yeah.
I think, and I'm not talking about the family that hosted me. I'm not worried about them. I don't care but in my family, I think I've identified several Trumpies. Several Trumpsters. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. Sorry.
They watch the show? Are they
in the best of families, my friends?
What?
Did you bring politics up at the Thanksgiving table?
No, I didn't.
No?
I didn't. No, I didn't. Certainly, I wouldn't do that. But here is the bizarre way in which, it's instructive, because here's the bizarre way in which, in my family, in the various characters who connect, they do a jujitsu pretzel logic thing and end up with Donald Trump and voting for Donald Trump. And here's what I mean. There's a member of my family who is with a guy, and his mother is married to a woman.
Okay.
So it's a lesbian family. The guy voted, and I think impressed upon my relative the need to vote for Donald Trump. And when asked why she voted for Donald Trump, my relative, she said it was the immigration thing. What was interesting to me about it was not that she had an answer, that it was the immigration thing, because they all have an answer. As I've said to you before, there is always a hook on which to hang their vote for Trump. It's immigration, it's the other big stuff that Donald Trump talks about, like weaponizing the Justice Department or the economy, whatever. And the economy was the big thing, and immigration was, the second big thing. And they took various spots, 1 and 2, depending on who you were talking to. But in polling, that's where it ended up. Anyway, I get back to the mother and mother, the lesbian couple, because it's astounding to me, if you're a woman, that you could find a vote for Donald Trump and for that conservative court and the religious righties that are coming in to take away all of your freedoms. They want the patriarchy that birthed all of these religions to reascend and take hold of America. That's just kind of what the deal is.
It's astounding, all the people that voted against their best interest.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I continue, because the other thing they're going to take away is you, the lesbian married women. There are other lesbians who want to be married, and they're taking away, A, your right to get married, and B, they are culling libraries and curricula of any reference to gay people or a gay lifestyle or lesbianism or whatever. It's going to be, they're already doing it. They're yanking it out of books, movies, television broadcasts, anything that might be exposed to students in a public school setting. Now, I'm not saying you need to go to Lesbian 101 as a class, but I'm just suggesting that these are people who live in society quite well. You don't need to, extract every reference to them. Yeah. And still, that's what's happening. So again, back to the family. So you've got 2 women and their son, who is the boyfriend of my relative, and all of them voted for Trump. And I just don't get it. It's like, I don't think you thought it through. But as Kim has noted, we this phenomenon where you vote against your interests is something that, is very much part of the con, I think, the propaganda con that has been the Trump positions. And, of course, right-wing media, which has been oversized in representing their positions in various ways that are completely intellectually bankrupt. So
it's really quite a trick. How you would get someone to vote against the things that would be better for them in their life. How you swindle them. How you I don't know, manipulate their thinking into putting themselves last. Interesting.
Yeah. There's another thing here. This is William Knight. I don't know, this might overstay. The Mark Thompson Show was going to write this as you introduced this story, but I knew she'd say immigration, which is a way not to have to admit that they're racist and Trump equals racism. There might be a quality of racism there. I don't know. I mean, I don't really know them. I don't even know her well enough to know whether she has evolved into someone who has sort of racist tendencies. I do think that there is something, and this is a demonstrable phenomenon through time, which is that, I mean, look at Nazi Germany and the rise of Nazi Germany and fascism through Europe. You see how by blaming a group, you are able to somehow take the attention away from flawed economic policies, the rise of fascism. If you can blame, in the case of Nazi Germany, it was the Jews, it was, it's the homosexuals, it's whatever it might be, the idea somehow that you can foist upon another group the blame for all that ails society. Yeah. And slowly that really is what happens. If we could only get rid of this group, this cancer on our society, we would be able to, et cetera, have a robust nation with a robust economy, et cetera. So there might be some truth to that. I don't know. In other words, in summary, I would say, yeah, if you can blame immigrants or blame them, whoever the them end up being, it's sort of a tried and true playbook. So The libs, I think, own a lot of that, blame the libs for a lot of it. It's a liberal society, we've lost our way. Let's get back to religion. Let's get back to God. Let's get back to whatever. So the laxness of society is their fault. Whoever the they is, the immigrants, how they come here with their culture. It's different than ours, whatever, et cetera. So there might be, it's extreme to say that they're racists, these people in my family who voted for Trump. But they might be. I don't know. As I say, I don't know them well enough. But man, if you ever needed a clearer, weird, cartoonish version of people who are voting against their own interests. And then we have other people in my family, again, I learned this at Thanksgiving, who are afraid to tell you, or certainly afraid to tell me, that they voted for Trump. But they feel Trump will be good for business. And in the business world that some of my family works in, I'm laughing because there's business associated with what? The environment. And if you think that this administration coming in is going to continue these environmental subsidy programs that are designed to clean up and in any way help the environment and, by so doing, help your business, you're crazy. So you're right. There's something else going on here. There's an identity. There's something, and I don't get it. So it was a revelation.
You just don't get it, do you?
I don't.
You don't.
No, I don't. It was a revelation for me, and I know it's being played out in a lot of different families and a lot of different dynamics that you'll have over the holidays, because it's not just Thanksgiving. You'll go into Christmas and New Year's, and we're rubbing up against these people and going, man, you voted for Trump? That's wild. Now, I can keep my cool, man. But when I start to talk about the substantive issue, that's when I begin to lose it. You know what I mean? But the idea, sometimes I talk to somebody and they voted for Trump, it's like, fine. Yeah. I get it, whatever. But if you actually, it's when they start to make the argument for why they voted for him, that's when I go, okay, this doesn't make any sense. Are you listening to yourself? So anyway, that was the situation in my house. Sorry about
The Mark Thompson
that. Was
Show.
the situation in my house.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. It really was a great Thanksgiving, but it was wild. It was really kind of wild that way. But
Mickey didn't talk back to me. He didn't say anything. Chip and Dale, quiet.
That's great. Yeah,
They
the
just
perfect
talk with
party
their
guest.
hands. That's exactly
Just
it.
shut up, eat, and get out of here. Right,
That's right.
Exactly. What was the ride at Disneyland that you most enjoyed, or the experience at Disneyland that you most enjoyed?
I like the I know it's super dorky. I like the train, the old train.
Oh,
Where
yeah.
you ride through Disneyland.
Sure.
My kids really enjoyed Tiana, the brand new log ride.
And
it's very
how does
hard
that
to get
work? It's a
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It
They
was
had
basically the old song of the South that was revamped due to racism.
sure.
And now it's Tiana's log ride, which is she's the only, I think she's the only Disney princess who is black. And
Oh,
so
wow.
they completely retooled it. But it's still the same drops and everything. But they loved it. They thought it was great.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. I'm waiting for my pardon. It has not yet arrived.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I guess Hunter is in line for the best pardon. It's the golden ticket pardon, of course, which is I'm pardoning you for this and anything else you ever did and anything back then and anything in the future.
Can you preemptively pardon people? Did we decide you could do that?
Apparently you can. It's controversial, but you can certainly do it. It's a little like the self-pardon. Can presidents pardon themselves? Mm-hmm. And, again, something that hasn't been super well established, but it is apparently something that one might be able to get away with. And certainly we feel as though we're close to road testing that with this presidency that's coming up.
Do you think that Biden should just do a preemptive blanket pardon for Jimmy Kimmel?
Right, that's right.
Like all these comedians,
Yeah.
all the members of the military who've spoken out against Trump, like everyone he's trying to go after, just pardon them all.
It's true. Elise Inzarillo in the chat notes that the rod of equity and mercy, let's face it, Hunter has a pardon, which he may consider of great value, but he does not have the rod of equity and mercy. Only viewers and listeners to this show have been in receipt of the rod of equity and mercy. And maybe today, in the last half hour of the show, I will be in a mood to bestow the rod of equity and mercy on some more lucky boys and girls today. So that would be, I know, it's kind of exciting. The president announcing last night that he signed a full and unconditional pardon for his son, Hunter. It comes in the last weeks, of course, of his time in office, despite public assurances in the past that he would neither pardon nor commute his son's sentence. I mean, the timing of it is about what you'd expect, right? He wanted it after the election, and you don't want it too close to the inauguration.
Well, and he was due to be sentenced this month, Hunter was.
And you want it before the sentencing, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Less than 2 months before President-elect Donald Trump will return to the White House, in a Sunday night post on social, Trump called Biden's pardon such an abuse and miscarriage of justice. And Trump knows something about a miscarriage of justice, my friends. He also asked if Biden's pardon would apply to people convicted of attacking the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Trump said during this year's presidential campaign that one of his first acts in his second term would be to free hundreds of those J6 rioters. Hunter Biden, you see him there with his dad, convicted in June of federal gun charges for lying about his addiction to crack cocaine when he purchased a gun. That was the thing. There's a little form that you have to fill out, and there's a box you have to check that you're not an addict when purchasing a gun. And he checked that box, but he was an addict, or at least using drugs at the time, supposedly. There's been some back and forth on that, but that was what essentially it was. 3 months later, he entered a guilty plea to tax offenses for failing to pay at least $1.4 million in federal taxes. Sentencing was expected later this month, as Kim was saying, in both these cases. And both these prosecutions were brought by the Justice Department. They had a special counsel, a guy, David Weiss. Now, he was appointed during the Trump administration. But Biden, this is how much of a choir boy Biden is. Biden actually let them add another prosecutor to that office to prosecute his son. So you talk about kind of a cognitive dissonance about it all. He was so worried about the appearance of any kind of politics involved in this that he let the Justice Department go on this jihad against his son. And now you end up with a guy who probably wouldn't get this kind of sentencing or facing down any kind of sort of serious legal ramifications. This is according to David Katz, who, again, appeared here during this whole thing. I think, if you don't know David Katz, he's one of the great legal analysts in the English-speaking world who you'll see appear on podcasts and on various network newscasts. But anyway, to the point, he said two things. He said, first, this prosecution probably would not have reached this threshold had this been just a normal person without the last name Biden. And secondly, he said, 100% Joe Biden will pardon Hunter Biden. He was sure of it.
Yeah.
Again, he did his Katsadamus, which is his foretelling of the future. And on this, he was 100% certain. And when he laid out the reasons why, it made total sense that Biden would pardon his son. He said, Biden did, I believe in the justice system, but as I have wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process, and it led to a miscarriage of justice. In trying to break Hunter, they've tried to break me, and there's no reason to believe it will stop here. Enough is enough, he said. And honestly, Hunter Biden's issues have been a political liability for Joe Biden for a long time. And in a sense, this is a predictable finish. Now, as you might imagine, there is a chapter and verse coming from the GOP mediaverse, and they are angry about this. They are, but again, their anger is, I'd suggest, packaged in different ways with legal analyses and such. This is what they were saying on Fox News Channel about this as the news broke. In 3, 2, 1, and here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's
No?
twirling a little bit. Well, we wait for that. I will say that Jill Biden did have a response to this as well. She was giving these remarks last night on at the National Guard family she was speaking to, and reporters were screaming at her. Oh, there she is. Yeah. Is it video? Do we have the video?
Thanks for coming, guys.
Dr. Biden, do you support the pardon of Hunter?
Dr. Biden.
Dr. Biden, what stands on the pardon of Hunter?
Yeah. She yells, of course I
support the pardon
She says, of course, I support the pardon. She said people are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form. This is President Biden who said this. Those who were late paying their taxes because of serious addictions, but paid them back subsequently with interest and penalties, are typically given non-criminal resolutions. So
yeah, I mean, she's not wrong about that.
Of course, I support the pardon of my son. Yes. Yeah.
By the way, is there any time that you're more gleeful about hearing those violins playing over whatever you have to say? It is, where were you guys 10 seconds ago when they were yelling questions at me? You guys are a little, Tony, play that again for me. So yeah. Bum, 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 bum. It's a Christmas party with all these little kids, okay, for those who are listening. There's nothing but little kids there.
Support the pardon of Hunter?
That's when she needs the violins to come in.
Yeah, pick it up now.
Yeah. She's hugging all these little kids. All right. This is a big Christmas party at the White House. Yeah. Now she leans in to make a remark, and they start with the violins. I love it. That was great. All right. Oh, that's the White House. Now,
The Mark Thompson Show.
from the White House to the outhouse, here's what's going on Fox News Channel and how they react to it. If Tony can rally this, you'll give it a listen.
For one, I guess because I'm so cynical, I never believed President Biden when he said he wasn't going to pardon his child. Are you surprised at the pardon?
Absolutely not surprised at all. The only question is why he carried this on for so long at the great expense of American taxpayers. There has been so much weaponization of the Justice Department, and this is yet another example. He was asked time and again whether he would pardon him, whether he would commute his sentence, and he vehemently denied that. There's no two ways about it. So certainly it's just a brazen lie. It's very shameless.
All right, Tom, you're a smart lawyer. Why now and why so expansive? I mean, I would love to have a pardon that went all the way back to college. His pretty much does. And it is after the conviction, but before the sentencing. Is that to avoid a pre-sentence investigation? Is that to avoid the temptation to cooperate against others? Why now?
Well, I think the timing, Trey, is simple. It was after the election. And the reason why Biden was continually, as we now see, lying was because it was at a time when he was a candidate, or at least Kamala Harris was a candidate, and he didn't want to come out and say what he presumably planned to do all along. I think he wanted to issue it now so that it would come before sentencing. I think that the political hit would have been even more severe if the judges, as everyone expected, sentenced Hunter Biden to serve hard time, and then the president comes in and issues the pardon. The political hit would have been even more significant. So I think that explains the timing. But look, there's no way of getting around this, no way to put this more gently than this is just total disrespect for the rule of law.
Okay, so let me just say, that guy actually makes sense. Minus the last part. I mean, the whole pardon thing is rife with, and I'll ask Gary Dietrich about this in a minute, but there's so many examples of this being, if you will, informed by no respect for the rule of law. I mean, he stuck the landing for Fox by saying this reeks of no respect for the rule of law. But the pardon process, almost by definition, with every president has something that stinks. With the Clintons, it was this Mark Rich. Mark Rich was a big donor to the Clintons, big supporter of the Clintons, and he needed a pardon. He was in prison at the time, as I recall, and he was petitioned by Clinton was by Mark Rich's wife, And he ended up getting this very controversial pardon. And that might have just been one of the controversial pardons in Clinton's time, but that one got a lot of attention. But I'll give you another one with Trump. And I know you know about Steve Bannon, who defrauded the Trump followers for all that money for the Build a Wall, but I'm not even talking about that. Trump pardoned Jared Kushner's father, who was serving time. I think he'd served 18 months already
because he was a total crook.
Listen, he was so Kim's right. He's a total crook. And one of the witnesses that was to have been used by the prosecution, he set up her husband in a hotel room with a prostitute and a video camera so as to compromise. I mean, the whole thing is so unseemly and gross, right? So he wanted to essentially just destroy this witness, so by doing this to her father. So Trump, to get back to the pardon part, ended up pardoning him. All right, so he's in the Kushner family, and you can see pardoning family is not exactly, invented over the weekend by Joe Biden. All I'm trying to say is that those Fox News Channel people are not completely wrong. Biden said he wasn't going to pardon his son, and they're not wrong about saying it was always the case that he probably would pardon his son. I think that is also true, just to speak about it objectively. We told you the reasons. We had David Katz in, and he explained them. But the last thing I would say is that they're also probably not wrong about the reason why. That is to say, why he said it during his term. He was trying to saying that he wasn't going to pardon his son was associated with trying to establish norms that he respects, the institution of the Justice Department, the institution of American justice. He was trying during his term to send the message that we're not like they are. They run afoul of the law. They don't care about the law. They don't care about American institutions. And so they'll take a wrecking ball to all of that, but we won't. Even in the case of my own son, I will let this prosecution continue. So again, they're not wrong. I would say, though, the last thing that former prosecutor said, which is, this shows a reckless disregard for the American justice. All right, but that's just political rhetoric. But I take the point that the 3D chess of this you could see all the way.
Can we go back to Mr. Kushner for a moment? Jared Kushner's daddy, who was pardoned by Trump. So now we have Trump, a felon, pardoning a felon, and now sending that pardoned felon to, is it the U.S. ambassador to France?
Oh, yeah, he's ambassador to France. That's exactly right. Yeah.
I mean, you talk about this seedy underbelly of, real estate and politics and down and dirty. And it's something you said, Mark, which is, for a long time, Democrats have not, Republicans will drag their knuckles in the mud and fling the mud everywhere. And Democrats kind of rise above it like we're too good to play dirty like that. Right? Well, so here's President Biden stepping in and saying, you know what? No, I'm not going to let my son rot in prison. And I wouldn't let mine either. No.
Kim is onto something, and I'll talk about it in the last half hour of the show. And it really is related to, just to kind of let you know what I'm thinking. There is a guerrilla war going on in a way. There is a different kind of war being fought over American politics and American government now. And you can't fight this war in the old way. You do have to sort of get down in the mud, and you're going to get dirty. And everything's not going to be, well, we play by the rules and they don't play by the rules. Great. You can dine out on that for a while, but at some point you're losing the country and you're losing those things that you claim to value. So you have to reimagine the way that you pursue politics in America at the highest levels and at the local level as well. So anyway.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Thank you for being here, though, this Monday after Thanksgiving. We are a 2-hour show, 2 to 4 on the East Coast. We're 11 to 1 on the West Coast, and then you do all the arithmetic for all the other coasts and all the places in between. Smash the like button if you would, please. It helps us in the YouTube universe. I don't know how it helps us, but it's important. So if you give us a thumbs up, we appreciate that. One of the great gifts that we have this holiday season on Mondays comes with our former colleague from KGO Radio. He is a political ninja and indeed the political analyst for the CBS stations across California and beyond and across the iHeart Radio network. How about it for the great Gary Dietrich, everyone? Hello, sir.
Hey, good morning, Mark. And another Monday when nothing is happening in Washington, right? I mean, it's just, you can't, I mean, this is, hey, everybody's just finally digesting their turkey. All of a sudden, kaboom, this.
Oh.
You know, I gotta say at the outset, you have to have compassion for Joe Biden when hubby drops this before he jumps on a plane to Africa for 3 days. He's out of the country. And she's sitting there trying to help little kids, and people are yelling at her about Hunter Biden. I mean, you know, there's never good timing in politics, but you got to have some compassion on the First Lady today.
I couldn't agree more. That was an awfully tough spot. It was. I would have come in and just said, "Hey, when I point to you guys in the band, you start playing, okay? I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear the press corps." Hey, I was just riffing a little bit on the pardon thing. You can speak to that, and then I want to move on because I think there's other very big stuff happening, like what's happening at the FBI, and I'll get to that. But give me your thoughts. This, in a way, feels as though it was a day that we all knew was coming.
Yeah, I think there was, was it going to come? Yes. Would it have been easier if it came, you know, somehow in a re-election, you know, and the band's playing and, oh, yeah, well, we're going to do this, but we're moving on. I mean, this is a tough spot. It's not only a tough spot for the current occupant of the White House, because this is going to have, as controversial pardons do, you don't really want the kitchen door slamming you in the backside on the way out. And this is going to do that. There's no way around it. I think the most challenging part right now is for sitting Democrats in Congress. You've heard, I'm sure, Mark, from the sitting governor of Colorado, who's spoken out against this, said president should not have done this. I think the problem becomes, I heard you in the lead in, you and Kim were talking about kind of drawing a clear line between them, and us for Democrats up till now. I don't think there's any way around this, Mark, but it really blurs that. And I think that's what Democrats are concerned about now in Washington and outside of Washington is, look, how are we going to prosecute the case in the public arena and in the political arena against Trump and whatever, shenanigans they think he's going to pull or going to pull, might pull with this sitting out there now. I think that's the challenge politically for Democrats, which is why I think you have and are going to hear people who said, look, Joe, we had a feeling you might do this, but how come you and from the, White House briefing room stuff kept making a point that you would never, ever do this, and then you did? Why not just say, well, it's under consideration, or, we got to see how the facts. But it was so unequivocal, Mark, the denials in advance, that it makes this, I think, have added import that it would not have otherwise.
I think that's such a great point. You could have easily characterized this as something that I certainly hope I won't have to consider this, but whatever. You can, especially as a politician as skilled as Joe Biden, there are a million ways to play it off. You don't have to answer the question. But as I was saying, he was trying to maintain a party line for a reason. He's trying to say, look, we don't play like they do. We respect the rule of law, but then again, in the end, we also respect the obligation we have to family, I guess. And, so speaking of the rule of law, it is typical that the FBI head is the FBI head for a 10-year term. And it is being virtually ignored by, as I was saying, even the New York Times. They just say, I don't remember the exact headline, but something along the lines of, Trump taps Kash Patel for FBI. Like, you're just replacing the new coaching staff like you would because you're the new head coach. That's not the way Washington typically works. So he's flushing a guy that he actually appointed, Trump again, in Gray. Isn't it Gray, his last name? Sorry. It was just I'm on jet lag, so my mind is slow today. But he is replacing him with a guy, Kash Patel, who has spoken quite openly about essentially dismantling this agency. I mean, closing down big parts of the FBI. Can you speak to this entire thing? First, the custom, the institution of letting an FBI director remain in place, and then the appointment, at least the nomination of Patel.
Well, first of all, you can certainly be forgiven for jet lag over the most difficult transportation period of the year, Washington or whatever, East Coast and Thanksgiving. I've done that. Believe me, that's a nightmare. And by the way, it's Ray, not Gray.
Ray,
nobody,
sorry, not Gray.
nobody really cares. But the point of the matter is, this is one of those rock and a hard place kind of things, Mark. And here's why: because it is not uncommon for even appointees who have set terms, when a new administration comes in, to at least offer, their resignation or offer, hey, listen, if you'd like me to stay on, I will, but if you don't, I understand. That's not uncommon. You see that in a lot of positions. There's been a little dust up recently with the Fed chairmanship, saying I'm not going to step down even if Trump wants me to. I have a set term. So, but it's not uncommon for people to offer that up. Why this has gotten a lot more attention is because the nature of Trump's new nominee is pretty controversial, to say the least. And were it just sort of like a changing of the old guard, it wouldn't be getting this kind of attention. But, it's now ranking right up there, perhaps not quite at, Matt Gaetz level, but it's pretty significant in terms of people raising their eyebrows about this. And again, we're going to see where this goes. I mean, I really think, and now we've got, of course, Hegseth. I don't know if you want to get into that today, but this email from Hegseth's mom years ago, and all the womanizing allegations, et cetera. So again, this stuff's going to play out. We're still 2 months from an inauguration day, basically, where this is going to become official. But I think there's going to be some comings and goings, even with the nominees, before they set foot in a Senate hearing. We'll see where this one goes.
And look, I want to just say this on the FBI thing, and then I wouldn't mind a quick word about Hegseth. I think we'll have time to talk about him probably in your, on future Mondays. But how many future Mondays he may have I'd be curious to know your take on that. But look, the FBI has a troubled history. The FBI has a history, for example, under J. Edgar Hoover, of being weaponized, of going after luminaries, civil rights leaders, Martin Luther King. It's been documented now, chapter and verse, literally, about what the FBI did to him, surveilled him, and really tried to destroy him. And they tried to do that with many people who were viewed as sort of enemies of the state. So the FBI's troubled history is one that one can point to and say, hey, the FBI needs to be dry cleaned of a lot of the bad stuff that's going on there. But Kash Patel has never even been an FBI agent. He has no respect from that institution, which has been revered alongside when it comes to counterterrorism and a lot of the work that the FBI has done, drug interdiction, this sort of thing. They're revered even as they live with that troubled history to which I've referred. So I'm wondering, on what level there'll be a tolerance for this kind of really out of left field nomination like Kash Patel.
Well, I think part of it twofold. First off, let me say this. You can pick real high profile names like J. Edgar Hoover, who, both of the Kennedy brothers, RFK as Attorney General and JFK, really had some concerns about. And there's been all kinds of things over the years written about whether J. Edgar Hoover even had something to do with the demise of the Kennedys. I mean, that's way out there. But I'm just simply saying, you're right, Mark. The FBI has been under the microscope a lot in many situations over many years. I think the larger concern I would get to about it institutionally, and then I'll switch to, this particular nominee, is, it's to me part of the sad degradation of institutional trust in our nation's capital. That we cannot abide as a society decade after decade, whether it be SCOTUS, the Supreme Court, whether it be the FBI, all of our institutions of governance. Look, folks, they are important, right? I mean, there's no getting around that. That is how a democracy, that is how a republic, that is how a society functions well. You have to have some institutional integrity. And that's my larger concern, Mark, about this, other nominees, and our institutions in Washington, is simply this, that all the polls show a declining societal, cultural belief in the integrity of these institutions. That, I think, we need to step back from, regardless of your politics, and say that's a concern. As far as this nominee goes and whether he's going to survive the nomination process, I think one of the interesting things about this, Mark, is it's sort of like if you line up 10 questionable figures, does it make it easy for each individual one to kind of slip their way through the cracks. Does that make sense? And I think that may be something very interesting for us to talk about and watch over the next couple of months. Whether it's doesn't matter. Tulsi Gabbard, this guy for Kash Patel. I mean, there's just a whole host of them. How many of these battles can you fight simultaneously? I guess is my point.
That's really the question that we were asking. I think you and I might have touched on it last time, which is, A, most presidents get most of the people they want in most of the positions to which they've been nominated. That's just a fact of history. Number two is really your point, which is, okay, you put up this murderer's row, in my view, of incompetence and of political terrorists is really what I think a lot of these people are. They're there to dismantle the very agencies that they're supposed to be running. And how many of them can you knock down? By pure numbers alone, which is kind of what you're saying, it seems like a couple of them are going to get into the outfield on you. Who will they be? Will it be Pete Hegseth or will it be Kash Patel? So I think you make a really good point. This is where process meets the lunacy, and this is my view, not yours. The lunacy and the rebellion of the Donald Trump administration, which is informed by a lot of things from Steve Bannon to who's on TV and looks good. I really think there's a lot that goes into this process. Let me go to Pete Hegseth for a moment, because the handicapping of the Pete Hegseth appointment has sort of become a little side hustle job that everybody's kind of working this holiday season. So he is President-elect Trump's pick to lead the Department of Defense. We've talked about the fact that this is an immense organization. He is someone who did serve in the military, but he's never been in an administrative position. And you have a management of over 2 million people, somewhere between 2 and 3 million people. That's just personnel across the globe. Now it comes out that he was pushed out as the head of 2 veterans advocacy organizations because there were internal allegations of mismanagement and personal misconduct. This is a whistleblower report. And I'm wondering if Hegseth takes on a little water, given the fact, now, again, he was repeatedly intoxicated at work events and gatherings with staff, sexually pursued female staffers. This is all in this whistleblower report. So it's kind of what we'd heard, but there are now more specifics. If Hegseth, that handsome weekend Fox News host that Donald Trump's fallen in love with, even though he's had no real managerial experience, if he takes on a little water, might he be close enough to the edge that he is the first one to topple over?
Well, yeah, I think, I was alluding to this a couple minutes ago, Mark. I think some of this is going to be Matt Gaetz. I mean, we're coming up with a new term here again, right? What I mean is there's sort of going to be a winnowing process before they ever see the light of a senatorial chamber. You know what I mean? A hearing room. Yeah. I really think this is some of it. Now, whether it's strategic and, on the part of the Trump transition team or not, it's just happening. I mean, there's no getting around it. In other words, the vetting process that you would normally see happening when senators are questioning these people is happening in the public arena before it ever hits their desks. So, I mean, are some of these folks likely to fall before they ever get into a Senate hearing room? I think that's probably true. I think, as I talked about before, that Trump's patience for, and how much capital does he want to spend on an individual nominee vis-a-vis major policy priorities that he's got on things like immigration, on the economy, on foreign policy. I think that's a calculus that we're going to see continue to play out. And the thing about Hegseth or anybody else is going to be, Trump's tolerance for, really going to the mat for some of these folks we've seen so far is not very high. And I just think that's likely to continue. I think that's just the reality of it. The only other thing I would say is that traditionally, and who knows whether tradition's been thrown out of the window of the Senate or not, traditionally what's happened is that individual senators with long-term policy chops in a particular area, say somebody who's been on the Defense Committee for a long time, or somebody, who's been part of the, Judiciary Committee. I mean, Joe Biden played this role. and going after Supreme Court justice nominees. They typically, those senators with long-standing influence in a particular policy area have been given a lot of latitude, a lot of deference, and a lot of respect. If they come after a nominee in their area of expertise, that usually is not a good sign. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens with some of these people on the defense area, both Republicans and Democrats, when it comes to Hegseth.
That's such a great take. The notion that there is a limit to sort of the reputational damage that Trump will allow to continue. I think that's a brilliant take. And so a lot of the traditional airing of this sort of thing, questions, in other words, about a nominee, that's going on pre-confirmation process. I think that's such a great take. Thank you, Gary. All right, I don't have another minute with you. I just want to ask you about what's happening. This is pure politics with Jamie Raskin and him going after the top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee. That's Gerald Nadler from New York. What's happening with that?
I think this is simply the aftermath of November 5th. I mean, had Democrats succeeded, right? Maybe they retook control of the House or, and certainly the White House. I don't think you'd see the changing of the guard being demanded and being undertaken, some of these palace coups within these committees, which traditionally have been very seniority focused. But I think there is a restlessness inside the Democratic Party writ large, no question about it. And people are saying, look, kids, things have got to change. And interestingly, somebody who's not short in the tooth herself, Nancy Pelosi, is actually apparently fostering some of this, saying, yeah, it's time for some of this old guard to go because we have got to get retooled for 2026.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. This is going to be a fascinating period in our history. It's not all fascinating good, but it is all fascinating. You can find Gary across the iHeart Radio network and also on the CBS television stations, and he's so great to come in on the finish to the holiday weekend here on this Monday and every Monday on the show. Gary, so appreciate you. Thank you, my friend.
You too, buddy.
Okay, Gary Dietrich, everybody. And I should mention, Gary is actually brought to us each week by Bill Campbell at RE/MAX Gold. If you're relocating into or from Northern California particularly, you need a highly respected real estate professional, and Bill Campbell is that real estate professional. Reach him at RE/MAX Gold, and you can text him directly, 530-448-7474. 530-448-7474. Bill Campbell from RE/MAX Gold. Thank you for bringing us Gary Dietrich every week.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, so that's a little bit of what's happening in the world of Washington and beyond. Kim, I am quickly calibrating the amount of time we have. I have Josh Mankiewicz from Dateline NBC coming through. Did you know that, Josh, just speaking of politics, you know that Josh Mankiewicz's father, Frank Mankiewicz, you can Google this, ran the campaign for George McGovern and was the press secretary for RFK Jr.'s dad, who was RFK.
Oh,
all
wow.
right. So, yeah.
Google it.
It's quite impressive. The Mankiewicz family immersed in Washington politics at the highest levels. And, in fact, when RFK was, there's Frank Mankiewicz, when RFK was assassinated in Los Angeles, the guy who had to come out and tell the public was that guy you're seeing in the picture right there, Frank Mankiewicz. There he is.
Can I just compliment Tony on getting those pictures up so quickly?
Yeah. Tony is a magical.
Something else about Josh Mankiewicz, he
Thanks,
must
Tony.
be so Googled so much that when I type, because I always have problems spelling his name correctly, but the minute I type it in, his name pops up.
Yeah.
On whether I'm doing it on email or Google Documents, no matter what, it pops right up. Like, we know who you mean. This is how you spell it.
Yeah. I definitely think you should mention that to Josh. He would love to hear that that he's super famous now.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I know. Wait, RFK Jr.'s dad was RFK? I know. I was trying to like really, I was trying to put it in the framework of today, so I did it that way. Yeah. Biden is as bad as Trump. Who said that? Lori. Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's quite a position, Lori. I've got to say, first of all, that I really groove on your avatar, which is a picture of you and wild hair. But I don't groove on Biden is as bad as Trump. The problem with Donald Trump, one of them, at least as it pertains to, is as bad as, I mean, look at who he's populating his administration with. I mean, that's all you need to really pay attention to when you want to do the comparison. I just don't think expertise is valued in any way in a Trump administration.
We just
only loyalty is valued, not expertise.
We hold ourselves to a higher standard. If you say you're going to do something, you do it, right? If President Biden says one thing, we expect him to hold true to that. Whereas with Trump, we expect him to lie. We know that whatever he says is not the truth, and we don't expect much from him.
Yeah, but I will say this, Kim, to be fair. I mean, this is an odd day to make that statement because he told us that he wasn't going to pardon his son, and then he did.
No, that's my whole point. That's why I think Lori is upset about it.
I see. That's what you're saying. Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
We have a certain expectation for President Biden that he's not going to sink down to that level, and here he is doing it.
Right, I see. Yeah.
And as a mom, I get it, because if I had the power to keep my child out of jail, I certainly would use it. But as a president, as someone with integrity, as someone we looked up to do the right thing, if you come out and you say you're going to do something, you make a promise, then you follow through, and he didn't do it.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I get on this one thing that you can draw this parallel. But the reality is, for me, and I could go on, and we have gone on and on. In fact, the show sort of has been a couple of years of going on and on about Trump misdeeds, illegalities, immoralities, etc. Mm-hmm. But give me a president who tries to overturn an election and engineer a coup, and I will show you a guy who is in no way comparable to Joe Biden. I mean, it's not even in the same universe. Right. This guy concocted a scheme with fake electors to then go to Washington and try to overturn the election that way. This is after he replaced the attorney general with some toady who was going to speak openly and in a press conference situation about the fact that there were irregularities and problems with the election when there weren't any irregularities or problems with the election. These are the legal things. And then ultimately, he turned that mob loose on the Capitol. Don't tell me that in any way that guy is comparable to Joe Biden. It just doesn't a whole lot. And again, that's just that one thing. I don't think you need to go past that one thing. Anyway, to be continued, but I always appreciate a controversial comment. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right. It is with the greatest excitement that I learned that there is another Dateline podcast coming.
What?
I know. I thought they were at the legal limit for Dateline podcasts, but apparently they are not. And before I bring on our featured guest, who's Josh Mankiewicz from Dateline NBC, I want to bring in my other half, the lovely and adorable Courtney, everybody. And the reason I bring her in is because she is our true crime specialist on this show. She has listened to the Dateline podcast because she never misses Dateline. And it's not just Dateline. She's not like just some retail true crime person. She has all the true crime podcasts. She is like, this is for her kind of like another industry of her life is following true crime. And so, Courtney, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to be quite a thrill to be able to speak to Josh Mankiewicz, who is there at the
always a thrill.
Epicenter of true crime there on Dateline.
There is, it's really the height of sort of true crime.
Yeah. I mean, it's
brand.
The zenith of all that is true crime. It's really the crescendo of that which we've all hoped for, which is a true crime coverage on a scale that we've never seen in this country before. And now there is another Dateline podcast. Bring him on now without any further delay, Josh Mankiewicz. Josh, we adore you. I personally adore you. I've known you all my life. And I've known you to be actually, in addition to lovely and every bit of terrific as a friend. I've also known that you've had truly a sincere interest in true crime all your life. It's weird
I know.
how this professional thing has worked out.
It is, because, you know, when I started in this business all those years ago, what I wanted to do was cover politics. And I was a political reporter for a long time, and I thought that I would always stay with that. And then when Dateline changed to doing true crime, which was in about 2005, 2006, I was like, I don't know if I want to do that or not. Usually when you start in this business, you are, you're covering the cops. You know, if you're lucky at the end, you're covering Congress or the White House or something. But I liked it, and I had always liked it. You're right. I had always been interested in reporting on the criminal justice system, one way or another, locally, nationally, and so this has all kind of worked out for me.
I mean, it really was something also just, and then I'll get to the podcast, which is the new Dateline offering, but it is something also that just sort of happened, isn't it? Because when Dateline first started, when you went there, as I remember, it was like a magazine show, like 60 Minutes or something.
It was like the sort of, cooler, faster moving 60 Minutes, but it was exactly the same kind of stories. I mean, might be an investigative story and a profile. I mean, we did all kinds of things. And
it's not like you didn't push to change Dateline's direction in the way that you didn't. It just happened.
No, we did all kinds of different stories, 4 or 5 or 6 in an hour. Some of them were funny, some of them were very serious, and then they just decided one day that they were going to go down the true crime route, and off we went. And I did not anticipate that it would catch on the way it has, but I'm glad that it did, and here we are. And so this is my, I don't know, 5th or 6th original podcast, something like that.
Courtney,
we do the audio of Dateline episodes every week, this previous Friday's episode, and then we do an episode talking about that called Talking Dateline, in which I usually am the person who debriefs the correspondent. But we do a bunch of
and you don't view
podcasts.
that the way I would view it, which is, this is a total pain in the ass. I already did this piece. Why do I have to do a podcast talking about this piece? You don't view it that way.
No, I think of it exactly the way you do. That's that. Yeah,
What?
No. Yeah, no,
all right, Courtney, there it is. Talking Dateline. You and Keith Morrison.
Yes. Well, me and Keith, or me and Dennis, or me and Andrea,
whomever,
and soon me or Blaine Alexander, who's joining us in January.
Oh, Blaine Alexander. I'm not familiar with Blaine Alexander, but I do love the name Blaine Alexander. I think Blaine is a very strong name. I love the name Blaine.
It is.
Now, Courtney, talk to me about the new Dateline NBC podcast, if you would. I'd rather hear it from you than Mankiewicz.
I mean, you.
That makes sense. I just want to say.
That's really
so
like...
it's Josh talking. Okay.
You don't want people to talk about my podcast.
No. It's just this is how the professionals do it.
Do you like it? Do you like the podcast? Did it land for you?
Yeah. Well, Josh can talk about it, but there are 2 episodes available, right, Josh? And then it begins tomorrow. Yeah.
The first 2 episodes are already out. The next 2
What's
come
it called,
out tomorrow.
Josh?
It's called Deadly Mirage, and there's a story behind that because we changed the title like 4 times, and now when people ask me, I can barely remember what it's called. But yes, it's called Deadly Mirage. It was going to be called Murder in the Mojave, and then it was going to be called something else. Too. And
I think I like it. You can avoid the word murder and go deadly. That's very strong.
Well, deadly is where we ended up.
Okay,
and,
so Deadly Mirage. So what's it about?
Deadly Mirage. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to join something called Dateline Premium, then you can get the for ad free, which people want. But there it is.
There it is. They look so happy. Those 2 are those the people who ended up? Let me guess. One of them's dead. The other's not.
That's a stock photo. I don't know who those people are. No, Mark, as usual, you figured it out. One of those people is dead, and the other. Oh, I mean, I'm happy to talk about the nuts and bolts of this thing because it's such a good story. On the left is Rob Lamone, and on his wife, on screen right there is Sabrina, and his wife. They lived out in Hallandale in an area called Silver Lakes, completely man-made, out in the desert in the Mojave area outside of Los Angeles. He worked for the railroad He was a railroad guy. She was mostly a stay-at-home mom, but she also worked at Costco handing out samples.
Oh yeah, those people are very nice.
Right. Well, that actually figures into the story because it is at Costco that she met someone who would radically change her life and her husband's life, who was a guy who was a firefighter nearby. And the thing you need to know about this story is that these two had an open marriage at the time that this happened.
Oh.
They'd been married for a while, and then they decided.
What a great job then handing out free samples is for someone who has an open marriage. You meet a lot of people.
Right.
If you like this free sample, I've got, right? Sure.
That's how it starts.
I don't mean to be, look, I don't mean to be, I'm just saying it's, the salacious truth.
I think you're correct. And that's how they met, because the firefighter was doing the grocery shopping for his firehouse and ran into her at Costco, and she was handing out little bits of cheese or
stuff,
sausage or who knows. Yeah. Things that you would probably not eat.
Little bits of cheese.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how relationships start. Is with
Thompson, party of four.
Yeah. Right. Go ahead. Yeah.
So one thing led to another. And the interesting thing is that, those two were in a marriage in which infidelity was essentially sanctioned because it was happening, right in front of the other person. But this was infidelity that was not sanctioned. And it led to an affair, and Rob found out about it. The husband demanded that they stop. There is some evidence that it did stop. There's also some evidence that it did not stop permanently. And then Rob Lamone was murdered very horribly at the railroad shop in his place of employment. And so then the question became, and I'm not going to tell you where this ends, but then the question became, was this related to the affair that she had? Was this related to their open marriage in some way? And if it was related, then how was it related? Was it a case of the wife and the boyfriend working together to get rid of the husband so they could be together? Or was this a case of the boyfriend simply wanting the husband out of the way so he could have that wife all to himself? And one of the great things that happened in this is that very quickly, the sheriff's department out there began to suspect the two of them. And so they got wiretaps on their phones, and they recorded just hours and hours and hours of conversations between the two in the days and weeks after Rob Lamone had been murdered. So one of the things
it had to be in those hours and hours. Sorry, go ahead. I apologize. Yeah.
Say that again.
I was going to say in the hours and hours, it would seem to me that they would have incriminated themselves over and over.
Yes and
Not
no.
necessarily?
They
Okay.
certainly incriminated themselves to the extent that it was obvious that there was some relationship going on there. The tapes reveal probably a pretty good after the fact case against Sabrina, in the sense that when the cop would call her to say, hey, there's been a development in the case, she would immediately call this guy who was her boyfriend and talk about that with him. I mean, it's clear that she did not want the case to be solved, or at least from the tapes, it suggests that. But there's nothing on the tapes in which either one of them says, I'm glad you agreed to my plan to kill Rob Lamone. Neither one of them says that. It's you hear a lot about their relationship, and what you hear a lot of is religion. Jonathan Hearn grew up in a very religious household. He was homeschooled, and he was a Christian and talked about that all the time. Talked about it with Sabrina, and there's this undertone of religion in almost everything that happens. I mean, the story of David and Bathsheba comes up in this.
Oh.
And
what was that story again, Josh?
Well, as you know, because you and I talk about the Bible all the time.
Yeah.
Usually when Courtney's out of the room. King David saw Bathsheba by accident. She was taking a bath on the roof at night. He
as
saw
one
her
does. Right.
as was the custom in that time. And he he saw her, had his people bring her to him. They began an affair. She was married. She became pregnant. And then there became this effort to cover it up. I apologize to people who know scripture way better than I do, because I'm condensing it for purposes of this interview. But to cover up that affair and the baby that was going to be the result of it, David had Bathsheba's husband, who I think was named Uriah, brought back from the front lines where he was a soldier fighting, so that he could be with Bathsheba, so that everybody could later claim, well, no, that baby must be his because he came back and saw his wife.
Sure.
Uriah, being apparently the only honorable guy in all of this, did not like being treated better than his men, and he wouldn't see Bathsheba when he came back. He stayed with his guys, and I think in the stables. So that little bit of the cover-up didn't work. So then David ordered that Uriah be sent back to the front lines, like right on the front lines, so that he would be killed in battle, which he was. And that. Oh, look, there they are. Nice.
Yeah, Tony
Great
found a picture. They had color photography back then.
I was going to say, great that they were able to get the photo mat back then. So Bathsheba gets sent back. Story of David and Bathsheba, and the aftermath came up a few times
in their conversations.
In the conversations of these two people who had an affair, and then her husband was killed. So in that way, it mirrored the story of David and Bathsheba. However, interesting for particularly for Jonathan Hearn, who spent so much time reading the Bible, apparently, he missed some significant parts of Scripture. First of all, there's nothing in there that suggests that Bathsheba knew about the plot to kill her husband. There's every indication that she probably didn't know about it. So she was not complicit in the murder in that sense. She was only complicit maybe in the affair. And there's some argument that she wouldn't have had much choice about that, given that he was the king. So, but there was tremendous punishment handed out to the two of them. That child became sick and died as a result of God's anger. This is the Bible.
The story, yeah, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, in the Bible, David does not roll on Bathsheba for a shot at early parole, which might be something to keep in mind as this podcast goes forward.
Wow. There's a lot going on here. I don't know, but I appreciate it.
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
Right.
Yeah, but that was good. Thank you. But this is a great story, a yarn from start to finish. And you get to hear the two participants in this. Now, Sabrina Lamont, as you'll hear as the podcast rolls forward, makes an argument that is a very common one for any follower of true crime. Courtney, you've no doubt heard this hundreds of times. And it is a difficult one to make to law enforcement or in front of a judge and jury. And that argument is, yes, I'm a liar in the sense that I lied to my husband about having an affair. I lied to our friends about having an affair. I lied, essentially to our children and to families and to everybody I knew about that affair. But murder? Oh no, I'm telling the truth about that, and you can trust me.
So, in my last minute or two with you, let me just ask you. It's interesting. It does sound like a great story, and I actually am going to listen to this. And I don't have the appetite for true crime, and so I want to make that clear. I obviously would support Josh in anything he's doing, but the stuff makes me uncomfortable. But that said, was this a story that you guys did on the TV show Dateline?
It was, and I was a little worried about redoing it on a podcast because this is one of those stories that everybody remembers from Dateline. So, there's a lot of people that are going to listen to this and be like, yeah, I think I know how this comes out. But even in a 2-hour Dateline, there is a great deal of material that gets left out.
Wow.
And we were able to use much more of the trial, much more of her conversations with police, his conversations with police, interviews with other people who knew them and sort of saw this affair developing, thought it had ended, then ended up talking to the cops about how they thought maybe it hadn't ended. So there's a lot here. If you know this story, and you may, there's a lot here that you haven't heard.
That's terrific. I'm looking forward to it. And Courtney's already into it, aren't you, Courtney?
Yeah. I listened to the first 2 episodes.
Yeah. There's a robust question, Deadly Mirage, it's called, Dateline NBC's new podcast with Josh Mankiewicz squiring us through the twists and turns of this story. Now, there's a robust conversation, Josh Mankiewicz, going on in the chat. I wouldn't expect that you would be watching it because you've been telling us about the podcast, but about the word bath, and that Bathsheba is linked in derivation to the word bath. However, Just Gives Me the Truth is saying the word bath comes from the Old English word bath, which is related to the Proto-Germanic word with the same meaning. The Proto-Germanic word comes from the Proto-Indo-European word be. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on this, Josh Mankiewicz.
As I said, there's a lot we left out of the 2-hour TV.
I can't wait to see it. Put it up there one more time for me, Tony. The what it'll look like when I no, not David and Bathsheba.
What? That was very inappropriate.
Deadly Mirage, it's called.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Deadly Mirage.
Well, I'm interested to hear your thoughts, and of course, I'm always interested to hear Courtney's thoughts because she's a fellow traveler on the true crime highway.
Yeah. She is truly well put. Josh, we adore you, and we'll see you over the holidays. Thank you.
Yes. See you guys soon. Bye.
Josh Mankiewicz, everybody. Wow.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Courtney, I want to ask you to quickly relate to the audience something that's breaking news from the show. We have a merch site, which is called getmarkmerch.com. And you have wonderfully taken on trying to curate it a little bit in its new form.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, getmarkmerch.com will link you to many of the things that, like our mugs and T-shirts and this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you have is there anything I need to know? Like, there's like, this is Cyber Monday. Is there something going on Cyber Monday? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead.
So it's Cyber Monday. There's a big sale on our partner site. They're hosting our new designs. So we have 6 new designs, which is very exciting. We have holiday designs that are limited edition.
Oh, the holiday designs are the happy
non-denominational
holidays. And those go on what? On a T-shirt?
Those are on T-shirts, mugs, hats, totes, variety of different.
You better get it today because of the discount and because once the holidays are over, it's probably
we're not going to have this design, and it's only available at Get Mark Merch. It was designed. We designed it with a team, and it's available only for the holidays. You'll see like this special Mark Talk bubble with a little holiday design in there as well. And then we have 3 new drops that are all available, and we have 2 more coming.
What are the drops? Tony, do you see anything else there? The drops are, I believe...
we have Chit Chit Chit.
Oh, right. You got Chit Chit Chit. That's terrific.
Yep. We have the fan favorite Chit Chit Chit. We have We Could Try Ignoring It, Sir.
And we could try ignoring it, sir. Yes. Yeah.
And then we have There's Never Been Anything Like This.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, that's great.
So those are all available
There's
as
never
mugs.
been anything like this.
Yeah.
Those are all available as mugs. We may have them
chit on a little like travel mug.
Yeah.
And it's only $12. Are you kidding
It's
me?
only $12, but you have to buy it today because these are the sales. Yeah. So it's up to 40% off.
If I were Kim, I would be buying that for everybody in my family.
I know. It really is great. And we have the classic Mark Thompson logo. We also have a new rectangular logo that's available.
So that's the classic that in
that's
the
classic,
lower right.
Yep.
And the rectangular is
if you go up, the rectangular is closer to the holiday. Yep. So it's the
right.
long
Yeah,
rectangular Mark Thompson show. So
yeah. Look at you with the new logo. You did that?
I know. Yep, we did that. Yeah.
Very,
and
very
so
cool.
the best, probably the easiest way to navigate to this site is through Get Mark merch. As soon as you go there, you can choose the design that you like. You can click on that, and it'll take you to where you can purchase any of the swag we talked about. There is also a tab on the YouTube channel. So while you're listening and watching
that's cool.
to this show, you can navigate over to the tab on YouTube, and you can make the purchase from there. And that is in part why we are working with this partner, because they have facilitated that.
That's great.
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah,
that's really
exactly.
great.
It really hasn't. So
Yeah.
Nobody has ever put something like this together that I've ever seen.
Okay. Well, we're looking forward
Exactly,
to it. GetMarkMerch.com.
Yep.
Welcome to the Mark Merch universe.
Yep.
Now, we don't make much money. I don't think we make virtually any money on this, but it's fun. You can see Courtney's had fun pulling it together.
Yeah.
And we hope that you'll have
Please
fun
visit.
repping
Yeah.
the show and send us pics. We will share
post
pics.
them. Yep.
Any pictures you send us of you at the merch, we will definitely share. So
Yes. And we love feedback. The site is totally redesigned, so it'll look and feel different. But know that you can navigate over and purchase those products. There's also hoodies, which is really cool.
Oh, there are?
Yeah,
I didn't know
there's
that.
long sleeve shirts.
I like
there's
the
light
colors.
hoodies. There's
Yeah.
darker hoodies. Yeah, I had the Christmas colors up. I sort of interchanged them because, of course, it's a non-denominational holiday. I think the navy is my favorite. I really like the navy version of this. Yeah, I think it really pops.
No,
it's
I-
really,
it-
really
it-
cool.
But the red looks
But you
good
like
too.
the red. The
I don't
green
know.
is really great.
You should have options. It's America.
There's
damn
a
it.
ton of options.
Yeah, you
yeah,
sure go.
there really is.
God bless
Yeah.
America.
Get
The
it?
end.
So you can go a little bit more Christmas with it or not, but we really love the designs. It was really great to work with a team that brought them to life, and they will not be available after this holiday. So
This is a limited
please come
offering.
And support.
So check
support
it out.
the new show. Support the new store.
The new store.
Mhm.
It's the new store. Courtney, thank you. We appreciate
Thank you for having me.
Thank
and
you for
I
your service. as they
really
say.
liked the new Dateline podcast.
Yeah,
So
I'm looking forward to getting into it, and I'm not even into that stuff. So
yeah, it's really great. The story's incredibly compelling. So
all right. Courtney, everybody.
for having
Thank you.
me. Bye.
Courtney, everybody.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Right on, everybody. Thank you for being here. Yeah, we like to do things that are kind of fun, something in the realm of just stuff that. And in fact, I'll tell you something else. Just hadn't expected. We don't have any graphic to indicate it yet. But didn't we just decide we're going to do a holiday meetup? What day did we decide on, Kim?
I thought we said December 21st.
Yeah, at 5 o'clock Pacific
That's
and
what it
8
looks
o'clock
like now.
Eastern. 21st, yeah.
Ironing it out and getting it set, but yeah.
We'll get you the graphic and all the details tomorrow if you guys want to join.
Kim, how are you?
And Kim, yeah, she's our point person on perhaps getting a lot of that stuff together. I also wanted to quickly note in the chat, oh my gosh, my favorite McAllister, Lucy McAllister, back after Thanksgiving. Big shout out.
Big shout out.
Thank you for the super sticker and for a $20 super sticker.
Since she's your favorite, you could always have her put it together.
Well, don't push it because it might happen.
What? Throwing a party.
No. So what happened to Kim? Well, she's the one. She said she didn't want to do it anymore. She said, "But give it to Lucy." Now Lucy is my new. Yeah.
It's like a rotating McAllister buffet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was also a question for Kim from Luis, who asks, Kim, did you visit the cantina at the Galaxy's Edge? The collection of scum and villainy there is only matched by Trump administration 2.0. Luis never misses a chance to, broadside the Trumps on the.
Of course.
Did you visit the Galaxy's Edge cantina?
I did not go into the cantina. The kids
That
had
line's
blue
too
milk.
long.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The line is long. Yeah.
I heard they serve booze there now.
I have been there. It was.
Pre-made booze.
I thought it was pretty good during the day. What kind of booze?
Pre-made. It's all like pre-mixed stuff, you know.
Yeah.
All that, so,
No, I mean, you know, it's who's got time for real bartenders when you're at Disneyland? But still. Now to some of the other comments. Vilma, who was one of the OGs of this show. Pocket pardon the January 6th committee and witnesses, etc., she says. That's what her advice would be to Joe Biden. That's very interesting because there is a sense, and it's really borne out by a lot of what we're hearing, certainly in the rhetoric around Trump, Steve Bannon, and those who are involved in what I'd suggest is sort of a political jihad. They want to go after everybody who they perceive as their enemies. So to Vilma's point, the J6 committee, witnesses, we'll see. It would be an interesting notion, frankly, off brand for Joe Biden to do it. But if he were to in any way pardon the January 6th committee and witnesses, pocket pardon and somehow keep the cloak of pardon over them in some kind of ongoing fashion, that would be fascinating. I don't see it happening, but perhaps. Donald Trump pardoned Lil Wayne, Roger Stone, and Steve Bannon, says Emmanuel. Why does Hunter Biden not deserve a pardon from his father? Yeah. I forget. You know, it's funny what you forget. I didn't forget about Roger Stone and Steve Bannon, but I forgot about Lil Wayne. What was Lil Wayne pardoned for? Do you, anybody?
Google it.
All right, well, we should check it. But yeah, of course, you're right. Not to. Lonnie Starr says, please stop it. We should not be discussing Biden's inconsequential pardon of his son. Is a distraction from the consequential, potentially apocalyptic Trump era. Look, I agree with you, which is sort of why I was saying what I said at the beginning of this show. I feel in the news of the week, oddly, the pardoning of Hunter Biden from a substantive going forward standpoint isn't particularly significant. On the scale of things that are going to affect us, I would agree with you that, you know, for example, I talked to Gary Dietrich about the FBI situation, the Pete Hegseth thing. As I was suggesting to you in my last remarks, Steve Bannon and those who are, J.D. Vance I would include in this category, they are part of the jihad that is associated with getting back at their political enemies. And I think you could see any number of ways in which you'll really see a return to the weaponization of the FBI, like a J. Edgar Hoover FBI. And some of you feel as though it's already there. It's not there. It's not quite so bad. But so I agree with that point. But still, it is the news of the day. So on some level, I think it does have to be addressed. Lil Wayne, his real name, you had it.
Dwayne Michael Carter Jr.
Mm-hmm.
He
pleaded
had
guilty
to federal weapons charges not last year, but
right.
That's what he was
right. And so he was found to be carrying a gun and bullets when cops searched a private plane that he was in Miami in 2019. He faced up to 10 years in prison, and Trump pardoned him. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's also one of the biggest stars in rap, and he did support Donald Trump. He met and appeared to endorse President Trump during the election campaign, praising his work on criminal reform. And 5 U.S. #1 rap singles is what they were saying. And that is the number. When you hit 5 #1 rap singles, you are likely to get that pardon. So
they said that he gave a lot of money to research hospitals and food banks and charities, so they thought he was a good candidate for pardon.
I mean, he might be. I mean, I'm not here to say he's not. I mean, every president has these things where they evaluate, you know. It's not always the wrongly accused death row inmate. Mm-hmm. It's oftentimes the moneyed, connected luminary who gets the pardon. Stepping Stone Media Group, LLC. We're Stepping Stone Media Group, LLC, everybody. And here's what we have to say for today. I don't know. I don't mean to mock you. I appreciate you being here. It just sounded funny. Stepping Stone Media Group, LLC. As a handle, I mean, as a name. Ask Mr. Mankiewicz if he can investigate how Starlink was used to manipulate the vote count in the 2024 general election. Well, he's doing true crime stuff now. I think probably not to speak for Mankiewicz, but he doesn't buy into that. I think he feels as though the election was a failing of the Democrats and sort of a moment in time politically. And also maybe a reflection of this country as having an appetite for something that we just really didn't want to admit, which is the demonization of several minority groups. But these may be now sort of bleeding into my thoughts rather than Mankiewicz's, but I know he doesn't buy into the Starlink thing. As you know, I think it would be wise to have called for recounts in some of these states, at least to put it to bed, because now you have it out there. And you know that the GOP would have been all over this. There's something going on here, generally, that is worth noting, and that is the Democrats feel the need to play by a higher standard than they're seeing their GOP brothers and sisters play by. And we see it in so many different ways, which is why the Hunter Biden thing, this is what Kim was kind of saying before, the Hunter Biden thing really shocks us because he had said he wasn't going to pardon him, and yet he is pardoning him. I mean, he's so much about being loyal to his word and loyal to the institutions of the United States that it's odd to see Joe Biden doing the very thing that he said he would not do. The Democrats have to see the stuff that matters and the stuff that doesn't. And I think on some level, Joe Biden sees it doesn't matter whether I pardon this guy or not. It's not going to really matter to the electorate. Playing by the rules doesn't matter to this electorate. They just elected a guy who doesn't play by any rules. Yep. Here's another one. The financial disclosures. Has Donald Trump ever released his taxes? Joe Biden releases his, and in so doing, respects a tradition and an institution that's associated with financial disclosure or the top executive office. Trump does not and will not. Medical records. Biden, I'm sure, dry cleans those records. Kamala Harris released her records. Trump did not only didn't release them, he aggressively saw to it that they wouldn't be released. He aggressively saw to it that his transcripts from his educational background wouldn't be released. So you see how the respect for tradition and institutions and that which is normal, so you can just call them norms, that is changing in America. And the Democrats are realizing, and I think Joe Biden probably realized it, some time ago, I'm sure it's frustrating, that this stuff doesn't matter. Has Trump even signed the ethics pledge yet? Asked John Watson. The answer is no. And if he doesn't sign the ethics pledge, guess what? Nothing happens. And you can say to me, there's a law that he has to sign it. I mean, Elizabeth Warren introduced this law that it's what I always say to you.
President, you can't charge him with anything.
The laws only matter if you enforce them. Exactly. And so,
we're talking about standards and how Democrats have a certain standard. We want to go back to ethics and if there ever were ethics in politics, maybe the seedy underbelly we didn't really talk about. But you have the appearance of class and truth and justice and being the good guy, right? Is that dead? Are those standards dead? Is what the Republicans have achieved with success in this election, did that kill off the standard? And so now are we clinging to this standard that's just gone?
I think there's always going to be the representation of a standard, but it's a question of seeing through what the standard is. And by that I mean, you can tell me that you believe in truth, justice, and the American way, but then I will point out to you ways in which you haven't upheld that standard to which you supposedly claimed an allegiance. I see winning now as the biggest thing that America's about, winning at all cost. And the way it's justified is that America is being taken over by the libs. This is the way the Republicans would and the right would generally, I think, and they don't maybe articulate it this way, but this is essentially it, and I get it. That's why I can represent it unapologetically. They would say, hey, we're in a real battle for this nation, and we're losing the nation to the libs with their open borders and their trans rights and with the kind of cultural stuff that doesn't really reflect what we are as real Americans. And for that reason, we need to win. We need to get this country back. And how we win is less important than the fact that we will win. And so you begin to celebrate the winning and the victory, and more importantly, particularly the way they put it, the vanquishing of the evil that is the left. You begin to see it from that standpoint. And so this allegiance to some standard or whatever you're talking, it's a little, you know what our standard is? It's winning. It's winning to get this country back and to return it to what it should be. That's the view of the right. But it's also the view of the left. The left is, they're going to turn it into an autocracy. There is an authoritarian strongman in waiting. He will become president. And look at the incompetence that he has populated his administration and his surroundings, his political surroundings with. There is no expertise. He's demonized expertise, science, doctors, etc. They've all been thrown out. So we on the left, those who lean left like myself, that's my clarion call. We need to win because look at those guys. I mean, they've shown you who they are. They tried to overthrow the American government. Yep. So that's where I'm coming from. So then the question is, okay, well, there's a fork in the road. Does that mean that you're willing to do anything to win? I mean, would you manipulate an election to win? Would you manipulate votes to win? Would you manipulate an outcome? And I would say, no, I'm not willing to do that. I mean, if I lose the election because they got more votes than I did, then I lost.
Yep.
But adherence to facts and winning in the forum of ideas, that's where politics should live, but that's not where it lives anymore. It lives in propaganda and siloing news and coming up with a way in which you can get to the finish line that isn't always about legitimate exchange of ideas. So I think that's where we are. It's about the winning. Mm-hmm. Now, and again, yeah, whose facts? Right. Randy, you can say it. We want to talk about facts, but whose facts? Right. What was the famous line? I forget who said it. It was a Trumpy. Somebody in the Trump administration said, somebody said, you don't have any of these facts right. It was a debate, I believe.
Was it Kellyanne Conway with her alternative fact statement?
She said, I think it was, it wasn't that. It was Kellyanne Conway, though. She said, I don't need the facts when I have the truth. And I thought that is George Orwell in your face. I don't need the facts when I have the truth. It's like, wow. I mean, I may be perverting that a little bit, twisting it or something, but I believe that's exactly what she said. Anyway, do you have any time for news or not?
Yeah, I have. Well, I have news, and I can do it.
Okay, good. All right, let's get some news in, and we'll comment along the way because there's other stuff going on besides just kind of what we're talking about.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Oh yeah, do smash the like button if you could. We appreciate it. And let me also mention this. This is really cool. I have I believe a new shout out to a new Patreon subscriber, or is it a new one or one of our existing? We exist through Patreon and PayPal. Those are the two ways in which you can really help us sustain the show. Mm-hmm. And I see it now. My favorite gun, Tom Gunn. Big shout out.
Big shout out.
Yeah, Tom Gunn editing his membership and support in our Patreon community from $20 a month to $50 a month.
Big shout out.
Wow.
What?
I love it. Tom Gunn, loving you. Thank you. You can find the links to Patreon and PayPal underneath this video and underneath all of our videos. It's really cool. Also, I'll mention that Annie from Norway, I believe. Is that possible? She, let me just see this. Annie.
Maybe Annie is connected to Osborne. Knudsen.
I'm Norwegian, she says. You'll have to excuse my lack of correct terminology. I've joined your news network. There is something that's been bugging me ever since the election, and I wonder if you have an answer. I can't make sense out of the presumed fact that there were 11 million fewer votes this year than there were 4 years ago. And yet, we were shown on TV that people were pouring in droves to go out and vote. So what happened to all those votes? Where are they counted? Were they counted? Were they all suppressed, all 11 million? Is that what's happening, like Greg Palast alleged? We were also shown that people were leaving Trump's rallies en masse, but Kamala Harris's were full of happy people. What's going on? Is it true that Musk and his AI crew managed to suppress all of these millions of ballots? And if that's true, why aren't you guys out in the streets demanding a recount with all the suppressed votes included? I love your program. Both you and Kim have lovely voices. Keep up the good work and say hi to David K. Johnston for me. Love his books. From Annie, who is our newest Patreon member. Big shout out to Annie, and she is Norwegian, watching in Norway. So there's a lot here, but I'll just try to get to it quickly. Let's just speak to the missing votes that you talk about. How is it that there were 11 million fewer voters this year than there were 4 years ago? Let me give you the non-stolen votes, non-manipulated vote answer first. The problem was that the Democrats didn't show up in the kind of numbers that was anticipated, the numbers that were anticipated based on polling, based on enthusiasm, based on a lot of the momentum to which you've referred in your email. And the thinking is that across many states and across many constituencies, young people, for example, who were thought to have shown up in the last election, didn't show up in numbers sufficient to carry a Democratic victory. That said, and then I'm going to get to the manipulated way. That said, it was a very slim majority for Donald Trump, very slim. It might have come down to, I want to say it comes down to a couple 100,000 votes over a few swing states. I mean, you know, again, we're still sifting through the ashes of this election, but that appears to have been the, here you go, and then I get it, here we go. Annie, you are right and Mark is wrong. Voters showed up. There was massive voter purging and voter suppression. So, okay, that's from Phineas. Let me now speak to Phineas's point. So the argument, and we had Greg Palast on twice, and I love Greg Palast, and I think his reporting is really impeccable, typically. There are two ways that this might have happened. They disenfranchise votes in the ways in which Greg Palast has detailed. It's associated with names, signatures not matching. You can call into question votes and voters. Private citizens can do it in any number of states without having any real grounds to call into question a vote. And a voter may not be even aware of whether or not their vote was counted. In all those ways, millions of votes could have been essentially not counted. Okay,
legally
disqualified. Yeah,
right.
Legally disqualified. Now, if you accept that, that's probably somewhere on. I mean, and I'm giving you liberal estimates. That is to say, loose estimates. 2.5 million. That's really that would be a really loose estimate. But that's one of the estimates that Palast came up with. And then when I really pressed him on it, state by state, it was hundreds of thousands. But still, let's go with the 2.5 million. Then what about the rest? It's thought that Starlink, as a data processing mechanism for this election, may have been involved in the manipulation of the count, since Elon Musk had access to so much personal data from so many different people who he was recruiting to vote in swing states through his contest, the $1 million contest. So now he has information on voters, and that can be cross-referenced quickly as to whether or not they actually voted, and you can use that information to essentially offer a bullet ballot, which is what we've talked about before, where you only vote for one thing on a ballot, in this case, president. You vote for Trump, or it shows that the ballot was cast for Trump and nothing else. And in that way, the election results are manipulated because it shows that Trump has more. The reason I wanted to see a recount was because I felt that to allay those suspicions of what had happened along the lines of what I've just described, why not get a paper recount? If there's a paper recount and it shows that all those bullet ballots are indeed matched by paper ballots cast for Trump, then we know it was legitimate. But by not recounting, we have no way to really allay those suspicions. And so we are where we are. And you have Phineas and many others who can credibly argue that this election wasn't completely kosher because of the involvement of Elon Musk, who has a vested interest in the outcome to the point that he has a social media company dedicated to promoting Trump propaganda. He worked the algorithm so people on X were seeing almost exclusively pro-Trump and anti-Biden stuff. So it is not a day's drive to suggest that he might have been involved in what would be a fairly basic technical manipulation of the data and the count. That's the thinking. And again, I would say to address those suspicions, why not get a recount? I don't get it, but it's now late for that. So, but anyway, thank you, Annie, for joining our crew on Patreon, and thank you for Tom Gunn for upgrading your support to $50 a month. Wow, man, that's really great. Big shout out to both of you.
Big shout out.
And I do want to say, if any of you would love to join our community of supporters, please do it through Patreon or PayPal. Click through under all our videos. There is a hot link, and it will take you right to the Patreon or PayPal link, and you just join the crew. Also, we have a website, themarkthompsonshow.com. Oh, and if you want to email us, it's themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. So you got all, I mean, there's a lot of information.
Look at all that. Here you go.
All right, Kim's News, and we will wrap up around here. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Special note, the winter solstice blend tea. Wow.
Oh, love
so
it.
good.
Love it.
Pardon me.
Yeah,
So
there
good.
it is. Look at the holiday happenings at Coachella
Holiday
Valley
package.
Coffee. Yeah, holiday blend, the winter solstice herbal tea. Very good.
As a matter of fact, if you go on the website and you try to get the winter solstice tea, it says you better buy it fast because they're running out. So I have to click and get some to give as gifts.
Grab it.
The White House is defending President Biden's decision to pardon his son Hunter. When asked if President Biden lied when he previously said there would be no pardon, spokeswoman Karine Jean-Pierre told reporters on Air Force One President Biden only came to this decision this weekend. She also claimed Hunter Biden was being singled out with his prosecutions for political reasons. President-elect Trump is warning Hamas, release the October 7th hostages. In a new post, Trump is warning that there will be hell to pay if they are not immediately released before he assumes office January 20th of 2025. He adds those responsible will be hit harder than anyone has ever been hit in the history of the United States. The White House is working hard to secure a ceasefire deal in Gaza in the hopes of stopping the fighting between Israel and Hamas. California lawmakers will begin a special session today at the request of Governor Gavin Newsom, who says he wants to Trump-proof the state of California. The governor asking the legislature for $25 million to fund possible litigation if the Trump administration enacts rules that impact California's policies. The first day of the session expected to primarily be spent welcoming newly elected legislators. Americans are expected to spend about $13 billion on this Cyber Monday. As for Black Friday, shopping Adobe Analytics estimates about $10.8 billion was spent online. That's up 10% from last year. Hey, I thought we couldn't afford groceries, eggs, and gas. Now we're forking out that money right and left. President-elect Trump is nominating Kash Patel to serve as the director of the FBI. Critics say Patel has called for a purge of perceived enemies in the FBI, the Justice Department, and in American intelligence agencies. Patel worked with the Secretary of Defense during Trump's first administration.
Let me just say, it's more than Patel worked for the Secretary of Defense under the first Trump administration. Patel is an architect of the J6 overthrow or attempted overthrow of the U.S. government. He is a coupster, okay? He is part of the coup planning. And now you're putting him in charge of a major investigative agency, a part of the Justice Department. It's insanity to me. I mean, again, it's Trump insanity. So, it's this Alice in Wonderland thing. But, I mean, he's doing it. He's populating these very important investigative bodies with charging powers. I mean, this is the Justice Department. They can charge you with whatever. He's populating them with pure loyalists, not experts in their field, not anyone with, as I say, a proven loyalty to an agency. Quite the contrary. It's loyalty to Trump. It's a scary period, potentially.
There are no
But he
rules.
was definitely an architect. So
Up
I
and
want to make that
down
point.
is up, and yeah. We took the red pill instead of the blue pill. Something matrixy happened to us because the world just kind of got flipped on its axis.
Yeah.
Ohio State and Michigan football programs are paying hefty fees for an end of regular season brawl in Columbus. Oh no, look at this. The Big Ten fined both schools $100,000 each after players engaged in physical altercations following the Wolverines' 13-10 upset win over the second-ranked Buckeyes on Saturday. The brawl happened after players on Michigan tried to plant their school flag onto Ohio State's logo at midfield. They weren't having the Big M. Go blue. No thank you for Ohio. Wow.
Yeah, that was a big. I didn't see this, but apparently it was pretty wild. I mean, it was really
brutal.
It was raucous. It was mayhem. So they fined them, right? They fined both of them.
Schools are longtime rivals. Yeah, they fined them each $100,000 each school. This is a bizarre story. A middle school art teacher in southern Merced County here in California has died of rabies. Leah Senang taught at Bryant Middle School in Dos Palos. She had reported that a bat had been in her classroom, and officials believe that was likely the source of rabies. The California Department of Public Health says bites from bats often go unnoticed. And again, this teacher who said there was a bat in her classroom has now died of rabies. Elton John says he's lost his eyesight. He told an audience Sunday at a show in London's West End that he hadn't been able to see the performance, but he did enjoy listening to it. The 77-year-old singer suffered an eye infection that has left him unable to see out of his right eye, and he says the vision in his left eye really isn't much better. So he says he has effectively lost his eyesight.
And how ironic is that? Given the fact that what is his calling card, among others, everybody?
His big glasses, yeah.
Yeah, the big glasses, exactly. It's so bizarre that this man is losing his eyesight. Wow. Have you ever seen Elton John in concert? Kim, you seem like the kind of person who might have gone to an Elton John show.
I do. No? If I were to go to a concert, that would be on my list. But I have not seen him in concert.
We saw his Red Piano performance, which he did, I guess, I want to say it was a Vegas residency, and maybe it was a little bit of a tour also associated with it. And he had played on a big red piano, of course. And what you forget is, I mean, even knowing we could go back and forth and name Elton John songs, and we could go do that for a while. You know what I mean? There it is, the red piano. And yet he goes one after the other and go, man, I can't believe how many incredibly popular songs he had through the decades, Just there it is, the Red Piano Tour. So at the end of the performance, he has people come up on stage toward the end. He's maybe 4 songs away from the end. And he has a bunch of people come up on stage, And it's usually an older crowd, so it's not very raucous per se, but there's a big crowd all around the piano. Okay, I'm going to say 60 people are on stage, and he's playing, and he's got people right along, not like sitting on the piano stool with him, but like right around him. Okay, and there are balloons and stuff, and it was great. Well, then I went on YouTube because I heard about an incident that happened a few weeks after we went, and somebody had tried to either touch him or reach over his hands or something.
No.
And he lost it. He just lost it on him. He stopped the performance and he stormed off stage.
Wow.
And it was, in a way, I kind of wish I was at that performance.
What?
You know.
This is why we can't have nice things, because the one guy decided he needed to reach over and twiddle with things. Don't
Exactly.
do that.
One a-hole spoils it for everyone. And so, yeah, that was the end of it. It was, but there they are on stage around the piano. Anyway, good stuff. Okay.
Yeah. So I saw this movie last night. Moana 2 is the new all-time Thanksgiving box office champ.
Wow.
The animated sequel made $221 million over the 5-day holiday period.
Gee.
And I am telling you, that movie theater was packed. I took 6 kids last night, 6 fifth graders. We had to sit in different rows because it was hard to get tickets together. The movie theater.
It was great. I loved it.
Wow.
We couldn't hardly get somebody had to wait out, another grown-up had to wait out in line to get popcorn for the kids because, I mean, it's crazy.
It's fantastic.
Why didn't you send the kids out to get the popcorn? Can't they get that themselves?
I wanted them to be able to see the movie.
Oh, I see.
The movie
You don't get the popcorn in place before the movie starts?
Well, yeah, but the line was so long for food. What I'm saying is, so one person had to take the kids into the movies, the other one had to get the food, and the food was, the line was so long it took forever.
Wow,
crazy.
that's
You just don't get it.
I don't get it. You're right.
Theater was a
I think
madhouse.
my sense of how it works is definitely not the correct sense. Okay, go ahead.
Moana 2 also scored the biggest 5-day opening ever, passing last year's The Super Mario Brothers movie. Strong second weekends from Wicked and Gladiator 2, along with Moana 2, helped secure the biggest Thanksgiving period ever, with $422 million brought in across all films. And I am telling you, it was, if you thought movies were dead and that people were just streaming movies from home after COVID, movies are back. What I saw at the theater over the last couple of days, because I saw Wicked and Moana both, the movies theater was jammed. People are back at the theaters.
Well,
yeah.
I've never seen anything like it.
What is the story with Wicked? Didn't Wicked do? I thought Wicked was the big thing. Everything I see is all about Wicked.
Moana. But Wicked did do really well. So strong second weekends for Wicked and Gladiator, but Moana did win. Tony and I were having a debate about Wicked. A neighbor won tickets to see Wicked and couldn't go and gave them to me, so I went. And I thought that movie was so good, and the crescendo of the plot, the music, the emotion at the end, I was weeping. I honestly have not had that kind of reaction to a movie, I think, ever. I thought it was so powerful and so good. And Tony disagrees with me. He says no.
Wow, you saw it also, and you didn't. Did you go with family, or what happened, Tony?
I won't see that movie. I'm
you
not
won't.
gay or a woman.
Well, I don't think that's
Right?
fair, Tony.
Well,
That's what. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's not a movie for me.
fantastic.
It's really okay. I am happy. I hear it is a wonderfully produced and beautifully shot. Good for you. I'll be over here.
Tony doesn't like musicals. He doesn't like that they're
I
trying to
see.
make a villain into a non-villain.
Well, that's a whole other problem I have with, villains shouldn't be good guys or be given. No.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is also an odd way for me to find out that Tony is not gay and not a woman, which is
What?
Really? Yeah.
I mean, this is really weird.
Who is having that
And single, can you
I didn't
tell?
think we were having it. He brought it up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Gosh.
It was incredible. Wicked,
Yeah.
incredible. And even if you don't
Well-
like
No,
musicals,
no.
Tony, stop that. I
hands
mean, I
down.
think
Of course, I am a woman, so there you go.
I love musicals. I am a straight man. Love musicals. Love them. I saw Wicked on stage. And I guess I'm looking forward to seeing the movie because it's just everywhere. It seems like it's a cultural phenomenon. It's a little like Titanic or what was the other James Cameron movie? Avatar. It just feels like, yeah. Tony needs his own show, says Mars. Yeah.
Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
I'll talk about video games and heavy metal music. Things that no one cares about.
It's I blame Tony, says Trevor. Yeah, well, Tony is really,
I thought it was really good. Anyway, so there you go.
Snap, Tony. That's a bit rough, dude. I agree. I really, I'm
an awful human being. It's okay.
Yeah, you're allowed. I mean, you're allowed not to go, but you don't have to say, well, it's only for gay people.
That's its target audience. Let's be honest.
It's a chick flick, but I would argue this:
is it a chick flick? Is it?
If you liked at all the original movie Wizard of Oz, which most of us grew up watching it, then I think you would like this, and I think that applies to everyone, straight, gay, whatever your gender, whatever your preference. I think it's good, but. We'll see.
But you're saying that I think what the point is here, there's no long chase sequence with a gunfight at the end that Tony could wrap his head around? No, nothing? No. Yeah.
There's some danger, though. There's some flying monkeys and some moments of peril.
That's right. That's right. Maybe you'd like to see just that part, Tony, the flying monkeys.
But are they threatened to kill dogs again, like in the original?
Oh, that's right.
Because that's okay. It's sympathy now. Killing dogs is okay, according to Wicked.
Gosh. Well,
there's no hope for Tony.
Yeah.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done?
Okay. I think we've characterized the film more or less accurately. Okay.
Yeah. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And
love our Coachella Valley coffee.
Yeah,
yes.
happy holidays. The holiday blend coffee, the winter solstice blend tea. Just gets you in the mood for colder weather, and it's so tasty and delicious.
Yes.
Today, Mark?
I just have espresso. I just and I kind of did it because I had to get the studio back together because I had to pull it apart to go on the road, and so I don't have the magical coffee drinking music.
Oh, that's okay.
But it is terrific. I love it, and I recommend it. Everybody jump on it. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. But it's really important because it's not just any coffee place. Their stuff is really high end, and they will take care of you. In fact, a lot of people have said, "Hey, we ordered this," and they sent us a little extra tote bag, or they sent us, they're very good about customer relations. So use our discount Mark T at checkout for 10% off because you'll want that. So get whatever you want, tea, coffee, anything on the site. They have all kinds of merch too. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Use Mark T at checkout for 10% off.
And if you do order the tea, don't forget to get the tea bags that they sell are really, really good. So get those too. If you're a tea drinker, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I will tell you, I know we're running over. Happy holidays to everybody. Don't know what holiday you're celebrating. Maybe you're you're not religious. I don't think, it feels like the holidays aren't even that religious anymore.
For the rest of us?
Yeah, when I was growing up, it was like a bunch of religious stuff. Now it's like, there's a sale. There's this sale, that sale. We have our shirts and cups, I believe. There are also coffee cups that say happy non-denominational holidays to you. Yeah, right? So even on our merch site, we say that. So if that's your jam, go to getmarkmerch.com. This is Cyber Monday there, so they have all kinds of discounts. I think the T-shirts are like $12 or something obscenely low. Getmarkmerch.com. Check it out anyway. I did want to get to a couple of things, and I know we're out of time, so I'm going to just get to them quickly. Brian Jennings says on the pardon thing, remember when Trump pardoned a convicted war criminal? That was okay. Yeah, that is brutal. You should go back and look at the Trump pardons, and maybe I will get into this a little bit more tomorrow. But when you want to get into, and again, as I mentioned, the pardon thing is always a bit shady because the people who end up with pardons can oftentimes be the moneyed political supporters who need a favor. But honest to God, convicted war criminals. That is absolutely right, and I'll follow up on that tomorrow. They were pardoned under the Trump administration. Biden was urged to pardon his son, says Tammy, because of Trump's promise to pardon the J6 criminals and Cash's appointment and Bondi appointment, etc. The fact that Hunter's crime, in quotes, was filling out paperwork while stoned, may justify the fact that Hunter is now the beneficiary of a pardon. Yeah, could be. I mean, there's no question that the J6, anything associated with J6, the J6 coup, the violent overthrow of the Capitol, et cetera, that should all be treated with the kind of intense scrutiny that would, I'd suggest, absolutely dictate hands off. Not going to pardon anybody associated with that. But again, that's Biden pardoning Hunter is not important. You're making it more important than it is. Wait till Trump starts pardoning J6ers. Yeah, on the same line. Right, exactly. I mean, I think that's a fair point. Santa is our true Lord and Savior, says Cal. Well, there you go. I mean, I'm always looking for a new Lord and Savior, and Santa would work well. Jesus said, Matthew 2:7, for as you judge others, you will be judged, and the same measure you use to others, the same will be measured to you. I kind of only wish that were true. But Jesus said a lot of good stuff. It just seems like in real life it hasn't all played out. I saw the Scientology pirate float, it says True Tech, being booed hilariously last night during a Santa parade. Wow. Yeah, Scientology, just the fun is out of Scientology, I guess. But it's nice to have a float.
They had a float. That's crazy.
Yeah, very impressed that they have a float. So, Wes, thank you. You're one of the OGs of the show. Thank you for a super sticker.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to you, sir. Thank you very much for that. In things that Trump didn't do. And when we talked about norms and things that are institutions and norms, and I was suggesting that essentially they're all getting trashed, and it's really now just about winning, and there's no transparency, it would seem. Transparency certainly is going away when it comes to this incoming administration, and I'm sure there are those who would argue that the current administration doesn't have the transparency you'd want. Debbie says divesting of all his holdings during the presidency and staying involved in those holdings. That was something that Trump said he was going to do, and he didn't do. He didn't divest himself of any of his holdings, and as you know, benefited enormously from them as he put Secret Service agents, and he continues to do this even as he's a former president. He puts Secret Service agents at all his properties, charges the taxpayer top dollars for all of the occupation of these different resorts and hotels where they have to be in sufficient numbers to protect this former president, now the president-to-be, president-elect. And so this is a scam. It's a grift that's ongoing, millions and millions of dollars. I think David Farenholt in the Washington Post detailed just some of it, and it's staggering the amount of money just into Secret Service. Look, it bankrupted the Secret Service. Just Trump did, with all of his different ways in which he charged the Secret Service. Trump FBI will operate exactly like J. Edgar Hoover's FBI. Reams of opposition research and the, quote, accidental deletion of all material they find on themselves, Byron Woolley says. I think that's a great take. I completely agree. The FBI will see a return to the J. Edgar Hoover true weaponization of the FBI. You want to see weaponization of the FBI? You're about to see it in a big, big way. Let's be real here. Who's going to lead the resistance, says Bryce, in the post-Biden America? Whitmer? No. Buttigieg? No. Shapiro? No. Gavin Newsom is the last man standing who can save the Democratic Party and win. This is really an interesting and intriguing question that I'd love to talk about more. Thank you, Bryce, for this. Kim, I'm going to ask you to put this question aside because I want to talk about it in greater detail. I'd like to revisit this very question with a number of different regulars on this show and even some special guests. For example, David K. Johnson, I'd like to have his opinion on it. I'd like to have Gary Dietrich. I'd love to have Rothman. That's just this week on this question of who's going to lead the resistance in post-Biden America. I'd suggest also the resistance is one thing. The future is another, political future. The resistance, I think, is going to be, you better just count on those people who are in Congress to do it. I don't know if that's much to encourage you. It was quite the brawl. That's the Michigan brawl, says Walnut Creek Adult Softball. And Underdog says, I bet Janine Pirro will replace Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court. Wow. You think she'll give up her position on the 5 to
I'd come from regular stock
to join the Supreme Court?
I totally agree.
Wow,
Yeah.
that would be pretty gross. Tony, more likely to attend what is this?
It was a pet festival over the summer. And there's there's the lineup poster right
so
there.
Read this comment for me.
Go to that festival in Pomona and sit through a Disney musical.
Rock on, my brother.
Well, I would say getting it. I don't know if I want to go back to No Values because it took like almost 4 hours to get in because the line was so long of the cars to get in that it took almost 3-4 hours to get in, and I won't do that again. The lineup was great though, with Misfits and Iggy Pop and Social Distortion, Bad Religion. It was good. It was really good.
Yeah, I love
Agent
it.
Orange played.
Man.
And then what's his name? Jello came out with him and sang Police Truck. Oh, it was good. It was good.
Wow.
I'm saying words you don't understand at all, Mark. I know.
No, I love that you get so enthusiastic about it. That's really, really cool. All
You'll
right.
find me at Wicked, and you'll find Tony wherever that is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all fiction, people, says Cal. I don't know what that's in reference to, but it's probably true. Well, we have learned a lot about ourselves today.
Yeah, really.
I have an email that I'll get into tomorrow about the hand recount. I know there's some interest in that and how to speed up potentially a hand recount, although I feel as though that horse is way out of the barn. But having said that, I will share that. It came in on the 27th, so I'm sorry I'm a little late to get to it, but we had a long weekend, so it kind of the first chance I've had to read it. If you want to reach me, you can do it at themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. And of course, themarkthompsonshow.com has links to everything. Kim is doing the after party live next, and she is rocking the holiday thing. She's all sweetness and light. Back with David K. Johnston tomorrow, and until then...
I'm Sheriff Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
We're out of time, everyone. Thank you for contributing. Thank you for being part of things. Thank you for supporting. And until tomorrow, bye-bye.